Greetings to you wherever you are. We want to welcome you to this important episode of the World Childless Week. My name is Soneni Dube, and I have the privilege of interviewing Sikhumbuzo Dube on being an African childless man. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for the warm welcome. I'm so pleased to be part of this very important show of the World Childless Week, where we talk about diversity as an African childless man.
Okay. Tell us about yourself.
As you have rightfully introduced me, I am Sikhumbuzo Dube. I am a pastor. This is my calling, and I am an African childless man. I just want to underscore that because that's very important because of what we are going to be discussing later on. And I found a ministry that I call Shunem Care, which is a grouping of men and women that really share their experience of being involuntarily childless. And I love touching people's lives in that regard because of a personal experience of being involuntarily childless. I am an author. I do blog on my website, Shunem Care. That is where I express the feelings and the thoughts and of becoming an involuntarily childless man. And also I do poetry, which is an expression of my good side and my bad side. And one other thing that I really enjoy is writing songs. Usually I specialize in writing songs for little children. And as a pastor, I stepped out also and became public about my involuntarily childless status.
Wow, thank you for that response. Our viewers now know about you. I'm sure they'll be pleased to know how being in an involuntarily childless marriage is like. Kindly share the joys and sorrows.
Thank you so much. I am so pleased that you actually pointed out joys because most of the times it is least thought of that there is joy in being in an involuntarily childless marriage. But maybe let me begin with the sorrows maybe of being in an involuntarily childless marriage. So sometimes you have questions that you don't have answers to because you may look at other people that may have done some terrible things before they got married, but now they are having their bouncing baby girls or bouncing baby boys, and it's just like one shot, they just have their children like that, and you just ask yourself questions, why? And also, I am a pastor, as somebody who is termed a man of God. Why is this happening to me when I am called to minister to people? Sometimes it becomes very difficult. In a marriage setup, it is very, very disturbing when there's that attitude of actually comparing. It's unavoidable. You actually compare yourselves with those people that you got married maybe almost at the same time or just before you or just after you just discover that maybe even those who got married after you, at one instance, they just have their children and you don't. And so that brings a bit of sorrow and sadness to this aspect. And so even the comments that people bring sometimes, they actually can be disturbing. And also at times when you get to meetings where people are discussing about, hey, my child did this, and my child did this, and my child did this. Sometimes you feel you can just collapse into nothingness and disappear at that moment because you can't really relate to what they are discussing at that moment. And so I think these are some of the sorrows that I have personally experienced. But there are joys. Truly, there are joys of being in a childless marriage. Right now, when we think about going to a holiday, I just tell my wife, let's just go. Let's just go to a holiday. There's no one who can say, why are you going? Why is it? I mean, there are no boundaries to this kind of a thing. Whilst I'm at that, and some people may think that, so since you are in an involuntarily childless marriage, it means you have more money to spend. And that's not the case. And this is a wrong notion that people think, because you still have responsibilities to your parents, you have responsibilities to your siblings, you have responsibilities to your relatives. In an African setting, we are a community, we live together, and you have to take care of the other people that are within you. So you don't have more to spend, so to speak, as some people may think. So the childless marriage should be considered, or childlessness should be considered as a rose, where you see yourself having those bright petals and also those thorns. The joy of being in a childless marriage is in looking at the roses, that the bright petals will actually bring the joy. I don't know whether I have actually spoken about those very important elements.
Wow, what a challenging journey it is. Let us talk about the African concept on childlessness.
That's a very unique concept. In Africa, I don't know about other cultures, but in Africa, joy is derived from having children. And this stems from a concept in our African traditional religion. It is as it were your ancestors have turned their back against you when you can't perpetuate the family lineage. When you can't continue, it is as it were the ancestors have turned their back against you. And also, you may be considered as someone who is bewitched. And thirdly, you may be considered as someone who has been cursed either by your parents or you have been cursed by somebody who is an enemy to your family, or you have been cursed even by the powers on high. God himself has actually cursed you. So this is the concept that is there. And so if you are to consider this, it is like childlessness is considered as committing a family genocide, because there is no continuity that you have brought. And so in some instances and in some cultures, it still happens today that when you die and you have not brought children, a rat is tied to your back and you are buried with the rat. And this is a register. The society is actually registering concern, pain, that you have died without continuing the family lineage. Right now, I come from the Dube clan, and if I don't have children, it is as if it were the lineage has stopped. And from my ancestry, from my forefathers, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, I have been the one that has stopped the continuity of this family. And so in an African concept, it is not looked at with happiness, it is looked at with scorn. That's the concept of childlessness in an African marriage, so to speak.
You have spoken passionately about the concept of childlessness in an African society. Tell us, what does this mean to you as a man?
Now, as a man, this is something now, it really blows me as a man. Maybe I need to go back a bit and pick something that I really left out on the African concept. You see, in an African concept, there is no man that is considered as important. I mean, it is blamed upon women, so to speak. And because this is blamed upon women, maybe as a man, I may really excuse myself and say, okay, not part of this. I don't have a problem with this. It's not an issue. But deep down in my heart, it will be, I may be verbalizing that, I know, I'm not the problem. And actually, people will be saying, when they look at somebody, 1 year has gone, 2 years have gone, 3 years have gone, and there is no child, they actually ask, so who is wrong between the two? Is it the man or is it the woman? And the first port of call is to say, the one who is wrong is the woman. That's a basic general. We in an African setting, we don't really say, okay, look at the male factor infertility. We don't really look at that. But deep down in our hearts, there is something that will be eating us up to say, I have failed. And this failure can be, there is this broodiness over this aspect. And this failure really makes me not to walk tall with my head up high, with my chest out, and with a step that really says that I am a man. It really is a problem, because when other men will be talking about men, will be talking about having their children. When other men will be saying having their children, talking about their the passing on the legacy and talking about all those things, I just shut down, because I don't have anything to share. I don't have anything to share, and there's nothing that I can put on the table. And so as a man, I will feel less of a man, less important, and being childless I may be considered as somebody who is fruitless. And additionally, the vocation that I chose really it takes a toll upon me. As a pastor, as a man, I'm supposed to be considered as somebody who is strong, somebody who is bold, and somebody who is... Now, if I am a childless man, that really takes out some points of being a pastor, some points, some strengths of being a man. A real man must have children. A real pastor must have children. He must be able to order his house and his children. That's a real pastor. That's a real man. That's what I am supposed to be. And so it really eats on my inner core. So whenever I think about manhood, I feel lost parenthood is almost equated to lost manhood.
I'm sure some childless men out there can relate with what you've just said. What are some of the common hurtful words that may be demeaning to you as a man?
Oh, yes. I have personally experienced, listened to some of these hurtful words. And my friends that I relate to that are involuntarily childless, who are men, have shared some of these phrases, and they are hurtful. For those of you who have children who are listening, for those of you who are parents, there are some statements that you can think that they are less harmful to some of us who don't have children. And some of those statements may be said loosely, and you may be thinking that you're just joking and you are having a good time with your friends who don't have children. But to us, they are statements that we don't really, they don't really go down well with us. And there's one that I heard from my friends, and my friend actually told me that she has heard a comment, "You are shooting blanks." And as a man, when you are told that you are shooting blanks, this really speaks to your bedroom life, and it really reduces the kind of man that you are. And you don't walk tall. You can't really raise your head up high and with your chest out and with that kind of a step that shows that you are a real man. You won't be able to be in that kind of a position when you are told that you are shooting blanks. You have to be a different caliber of a man to be able to really rise above the comments that people will have brought. Another comment that I have heard is that maybe you are not praying enough. And so when somebody says you are not praying enough, this person is actually demeaning maybe the pastor that is in me, because I'm supposed to be a prayerful somebody. And when I pray, things are supposed to happen. But no, tell you what, when I pray for other people who don't have children, they have children and I don't. And so when you say I'm not praying enough, it is actually demeaning the pastor that I am, demeaning the man that I am. But one of the most hurtful, let me come to this one and maybe let me be more personal and talk about this, because this really hit hard on me. I don't know whether I can actually share this one. Let me share this one. This one is somebody actually say, you are playing. You are playing. It may sound as a joke. It may sound as a joke when somebody says, you're playing. But you have not been to the places where I got into the audience chamber with the God that I profess, the higher power that I profess, and called unto him and say, Lord, I need a child. You've never been there. You don't know how many times I've fasted. You don't know how many times I've taken the amount of money that I have pumped into trying to become a parent. You don't know the medical conditions that I can be going through. You don't know all those things. So when you say you are playing, it is like saying you as a man, you are supposed to have stood up and done something, because you are a man. You are supposed to have corrected this. But when you are saying you are playing, you are saying you have derolled from your role of being a man and you are playing. Basically, you are doing nothing. You are not a man. You are not courageous enough. So in life, I've discovered 4 things that really we need to be careful as we open our mouths. Generally in life, we need to be careful as we open our mouths. First, it is the issue of weight. You don't talk about somebody's weight carelessly. You're supposed to know maybe somebody has got a medical condition. And secondly, it is about this marital status. If somebody is single, you don't have to be pushing that person to get married. And thirdly, it is the issues of disability. You have to be careful how you open your mouth and talk about disability issues. And fourth, it is the issue of infertility. We have to tread carefully as we do that. So these are the hurtful comments that I have received, and maybe that can really help those who are listening. So we need to be. These have been hurtful comments indeed.
Hurtful phrases indeed. Now, tell us about your going public about childlessness as a man.
Going public as a man. One day I met some friends who are also in my situation, and I spoke to them, and they encouraged me, they strengthened me, and I felt like sharing my story. So I shared my story, but I didn't really, I wrote the whole story, but there was a time when I thought I should click the share button so that my story becomes boom like that in public. It was a hard experience for me to really break out in public. Although I had written my experiences, the pain that I go through, it was really hard for me to break into public and talk about this very thing. So it was after some prayer that I really clicked the share button on Facebook. And the comments came pouring like that. And I felt like the world is collapsing on me. So that was my experience. some few years ago when I shared my first time experience to go public and talk about this thing. So I shared my experience in public on Facebook.
What did that do to you?
Okay. I see you're interested in what that actually did to me. You see, that was breaking into new ground. As I clicked the share button, and comments came streaming like that, and you see, sometimes when it's a natural human element to actually enjoy when people are commenting on a post that you have actually posted, maybe on Facebook or whatever social media platform it is. You find happiness in that. But it wasn't my case, because whilst most of the comments were really positive and they were trying to encourage this, I felt compromised. I felt dirty, for lack of a better word. I felt I regretted why I had actually shared that kind of a thing. Maybe you may be wondering why. I'm a man. And as a man, associating yourself with something that has got stigma in an African situation where childlessness is linked with being bewitched and being cursed and being actually having your ancestors turning your back against you, you just don't need to talk about that kind of a thing. You are a man. This was something that was in my mind. And I was saying, why did I do this? Why did I do this? Moreover, I am a pastor. What will those who follow behind me say? I was disturbed at that moment. And I said, this is something wrong that I have done. But then, I found consolation when some people who actually relate to my situation really got into my inbox, some into my WhatsApp, some talking about this, and they were saying, thank you for being vulnerable, sharing this. It has actually become a consolation to me. It has brought a consolation. I'm in that kind of a situation, and I am thankful that you actually did that. And at that point in time, it was a bling bling moment, and I felt rejuvenated. I was joyous that I actually had the courage to do that. So as an African childless man, I said, had I not said that kind of a thing, had I not shared, what was going to happen to a group of people that are following behind me, and they know about my situation, and they wonder why I am not talking about it, and they wonder why there is this silence. Is it a sin? Is it something evil to talk about it? So it did something for me, and then I took my wound, and then I became allow me to borrow from the classical images of pastoral care, and I became a wounded healer, taking my wounds and utilizing those wounds as a ministry. So I don't look at my wound and say my wound is now a problem, but when I look at my wound, I say thanks be to this wound, because this wound is helping me to be able to provide ministry. So I'm really grateful that I actually had the courage. I was inspired to click that share button.
Okay. What words of encouragement can you share with other childless men?
Oh, this is my best part, sharing words of encouragement. I just want to say, if you are childless, just like me, and more so if you are African, I just want to demythologize this kind of a concept that marriage is complete even when there are no children. It is love that really completes the marriage. It cements the marriage. The second thing that I want to say is love your wife in spite of. Don't love your wife because of. Because loving your wife because of is actually saying, I love you because you have done this. I love you because you have done this. If you have not done this, then my love disappears. So that's unconditional love. But if you love in spite of, you actually saying, I don't care what is surrounding our marriage, but what I know is that I endear you. And the last thing that I want to say is that as a childless man, I am a unique tint that really colors the abstract portrait of the world by loving my wife. And I want to encourage you to be this kind of a man. And lastly, walk tall with your head up high, knowing that birthing children is not all there is to life, but life is more important than having children.
There you heard it for yourselves. Being an African childless man who loves his wife is something that can be done. It is not a weakness, but a strength to be envied. I want to make an appeal to those who feel like dissolving their marriages because of childlessness to think otherwise. For your own information, Sikhumbuzo is my husband. I have a shared experience of what it says. I thank him for being vulnerable enough to share his work. To you viewers and listeners, stay blessed and stay safe.
Please stay safe and be blessed.